Greetings, BlackBerry people, citizens of Crackberry Nation.
Crackberry.com.
Welcome to the Crackberry.com podcast, episode 086 for Wednesday, May 30th, 2012.
Hey, everybody, it's Kevin for Crackberry.com. You are listening to the #1 podcast for BlackBerry users and abusers worldwide. Yes, there's still shitloads of us left in the world. This is going to be an off-the-cuff, off-the-record, off-the-hook show because there's a lot to talk about. It's been over a month since we've done one of these things. Yeah, we did audio at BlackBerry World, but we did do it with video, so we're going to have some fun today. On the show, yours truly, Kevin Mitchell, founder and editor-in-chief of Crackberry.com. The guy you heard previous was...
Adam Zeiss, Crackberry.com.
There we go. We also have Chris Umiastowski, or Yumi, as we call him.
Yumi, here I am.
Because we're lazy.
Ow! So old, but so good-looking, Chris. Man crush. And Blaze, where are you at these days?
I am in Arizona hanging out with sources that are familiar with the matter.
We took you to BlackBerry World and you never came home.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yep.
We don't have you on video today because your internet connection is rubbish. You don't have the infrastructure of Canada.
I know, right?
That's okay. We love you nonetheless. Or we love you regardless. I don't know.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. I'm up. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, so things to talk about today, guys. We actually did a Mobile Nations podcast yesterday, and it sucked. I felt like I was getting ganged up on by all these other EICs from our other sites, harping on BlackBerry. And then I was kind of like defending it, but then, it was kind of bad because then later that day, all of a sudden, Thorsten Heinz throws out a press release with an update on the state of RIM business, which, didn't really drop any big news that we didn't know about. But, again, it kind of sobered up the excitement we had following BlackBerry World, because I think, leaving BlackBerry World, we're all pretty high on BlackBerry 10 and really excited to see it come to market. But a statement like yesterday kind of throws doubt that RIM's going to be able to get it to market if, they don't keep the sales up, don't get the share price up, all that kind of stuff. Even though they got cash in the bank, they're adding to their cash reserves. But I guess one of the big pieces of news, and Yumi will let you talk about this right away, is it sounds like RIM's going to be reporting their first ever operating loss on this upcoming quarter.
Yeah, you want me to talk about that right now? I'll just jump right in then.
Yeah, let's deal with the net, like the harsh reality stuff right at the start.
Yeah, so I think really that was the only piece of news that we can call news. And I know Blaze, you and I had some Twitter discussion back and forth on this. I mean, the reality is the street was expecting RIM to make an operating profit this quarter. The analyst estimates, I can't remember what it was, but it was a couple $100 million, somewhere between 200 and 300 million of operating profit were expected. So RIM came out and said that they are likely to report an operating loss, and they didn't clarify. And for those of you who are not financial types, there's the adjusted number, and then there's the GAAP number, the generally accepted accounting principles number. Usually people don't care too much about the GAAP number because it's the official accounting specific rules. And if you write off inventory, you have to count that against your operating profit. And when you're looking at the ongoing business, you really care about everything other than the one-time items. You don't really care too much about a quarterly inventory write-off. And RIM clarified, from what I understand, the investor relations department clarified that they did actually mean an operating loss, not due to one-time items. So that's a really bad place for RIM to be. That means that the next thing to go is cash flow. So obviously we still have 2 more quarters of really bad numbers before they can get BB10 out at least. And if things only get worse before they get better, they might be cash flow positive today, but they probably won't be cash flow positive by the time they get BlackBerry 10 out. So that's why you're seeing the stock drop significantly today. And very interesting. That was the only real piece of news. Otherwise, they did tell us 1 million new subscribers added in the quarter, but that's 1 million global sub ads. So they obviously lost a lot of subscribers in the United States. And I would say they also interestingly confirmed, you're drinking already, Kevin. They confirmed that they hired an investment bank or two investment banks to look at strategic alternatives, and obviously that includes a potential sale of the company. I mean, they would be doing investors a disservice to not look at all possible avenues here. So that's basically what's going on.
Now, in terms of the strategic advisors, I mean, that was news in the official sense that Heinz confirmed it, but
Yeah.
that was a report. I mean, that wasn't a surprise, right? That story came out months and months ago, and it seemed like
6
nobody
months
really
ago.
denied it at that time, including RIM, right? And if it was way off, RIM probably would have said, hey, this isn't true. So they basically, by doing nothing, confirmed it months ago. So that wasn't really news. Although the mass media yesterday, I was watching some news channels before bed, and a lot of people are like, oh, JP Morgan's involved in RBC, things are going to get split up and sold off. And, everybody jumps on these things like it's the end of the world. But to me, it's just like nothing changed yesterday that we didn't really know. I mean, RIM's in the same tough spot, the same challenging road ahead that they have been for the last year, basically. It's just about execution and getting it to market. I think the only thing now is there's more of a time crunch on everything. It's even a day like yesterday, I questioned, for a second, the faith, like, well, now it's really get her done time. I mean, they need to push to market. It looks like October is probably the month when it's going to happen. I saw Hugo Miller, I think it was Hugo Miller's piece there, or somebody's was pointing to, or no, it was another Globe and Mail story, sorry, that was looking at the first 100 days of Torsten Heinz at RIM. And it was a bit of a hatchet job piece. But they said, well, BB10 has to be on the market for back to school. And I'm like, well, I don't think it will be, right? And I don't think we ever thought it would be. I think October's always been probably more the time frame. I think being here for Christmas is ideal. I think I also see a lot of people saying like, oh, BB10 has to hit the market before iPhone 5 or it's over. And I think that's a bit of hogwash in the sense that we see how RIM's positioning BB10 and who it's for. And I really think, iPhone 5 is a little bit irrelevant to it because it's RIM's going after a specific piece, at least in the early days of BB10. And those people will switch or try it whenever it hits the market. They just have to make sure it rocks when it hits the market.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, you said nothing changed yesterday, and in many ways that's true. So we knew that things were going to get worse before they got better at RIM, and the only unknown was really the steepness of the down curve, and then whether, how far they have to go to recover essentially when BlackBerry 10 kicks in. So whether or not BlackBerry 10 is ultimately successful and makes RIM a profitable business with reasonable market share hasn't changed here. It just means that they're going to have a little bit more work to do, obviously, to recover the lost customers that they've lost at a faster rate than the street was expecting.
Now, I want to talk about the timing of yesterday's update too. Over the last week, we've seen quite a few posts up on the net, including on Crackberry. One pointing, and I think you covered both of them actually, and did a good job on them. One pointing towards layoffs coming. There's been lots of rumors saying RIM's going to do another round of layoffs, and it's a necessary evil basically that they have to get done. And the other one talking about the inventory write-downs. And it felt like the timing of this was just Heinz actually taking control of the message, right? Because people are writing the stories regardless. And RIM didn't say anything, right? They just kind of popped up all of a sudden, these two big sort of stories. And the market was reacting to them on their own. So I think Heinz, and different from maybe what Jim and Mike would have done in the past, just came out and said, here's the update, here's where we're at. Very transparent and very upfront, which, doesn't help the stock stay up, but at least it's nice to see he is communicating and the company is communicating where they're at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was nice that they came out and were transparent. They issued a profit warning, even though they never gave any guidance on the quarter. And, that's the right thing to do because they should be warning relative to where street estimates are. If they are not giving guidance, then the street estimates are what matter, and they're going to dramatically miss those. They got to come out and say something, even though they didn't technically have to.
Okay, so takeaway from yesterday then. I mean, what's the prediction on the next? Okay, we're at the end of May, so we basically have June, July, August, September, 4 months of dead time, right? Where
Yeah.
RIM has got, I guess, a ton of inventory that they need to blow off. No new devices really coming out other than what the Curve 9320, which is just kind of low cost replacement devices. So what happens between now and then? Do things just kind of keep getting worse? RIM needs to cut costs and try to keep the cash in the bank as much as they can. I think Heinz said, we're going to put our dollars strategically where they make the most sense and save them where it makes sense to save them. But is it just going to get worse now? Like, I guess so, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a strategic standpoint, RIM needs to explore all of their possible alternatives. They need to look at other lines of business that they could be going into, verticals, etc. But none of that's going to happen before BB10 is out. So ultimately, right now, I was just on the phone with a friend of mine in the industry this morning, and the way I phrase it is, it's like no matter how bad it hurts, they have to cauterize the wound right now. And that might mean subsidizing BlackBerry 7 devices down to a lower level. We think they're pretty much making no gross margin on the hardware that they sell right now, and they have to do whatever it takes to prevent the bleed out here. Because if they bleed out too many customers, they have a much harder uphill battle by the time BlackBerry 10 rolls around. And so they need to make this as smooth as possible. And obviously, it's not going well for them right now, given the warning last night. But yeah, I mean, I think in the next 6 months, behind the scenes, they're doing a bunch of stuff on BlackBerry 10. They're doing a bunch of stuff to explore different vertical markets and different ways of monetizing their network operating infrastructure. But with BlackBerry 7, it's just about stemming the bleeding. They've got to make sure that people still see these as effective and cheap devices.
Maybe they should just give all their all the devices away to like enterprises as a free upgrade right now to keep companies on BES until they can bring in BB10 and Mobile Fusion to them.
Yeah, like, I mean, why
Thanks.
not? We've already written off over, what's the totals? 485 plus 267, however much that adds up to. But that's a lot of hundreds of millions. It's 700 or something like that $1 million. That's how much inventory they've written off. Does it really matter if they spend another $100 or $200 million subsidizing the business? Not subsidizing, but maintaining their business while they get from where they are to where they need to be?
Yeah. No,
this is all or none. I mean, I really see this as an all or none situation for them, and I think we all kind of agree that BlackBerry 10 is pretty darn impressive. But if they don't do a good job at executing on it, it's going to be a very, very different story in 1 year or less. Yeah, and if they do execute on it, then they're okay.
I just like, what irks me, I don't like to spend time thinking, what might have been, what could have happened, coulda, woulda, shoulda type stuff. But part of me wonders if Heinz would have come in a year sooner and Mike and Jim would have stepped down a year sooner. Because it really feels like Heinz has done a lot of reorganization and put the focus on the company. If that focus would have emerged a year sooner, would things be different right now? Adam, what do you think, since you haven't said anything and people in the comments are saying, speak, Adam, speak?
I don't like to talk about RIM. I'm just kidding. No, I think I definitely think it would have been different. Because we went through a lot of stuff in between where it was all the talk about should Mike and Jim step down, and there wasn't a whole lot going on in the last year. But it definitely, I think it would have made a difference, because he could have come in, when all the playbook stuff was going on, and before even the BlackBerry 7 phones came out, and kind of, I think, had a better plan. Because right now I feel like we're in, this big dead space, because I guess the last big release was the BlackBerry 7 phones, like the Bold 9900 and everything, which we're really looking forward to. And they came out and everything kind of fell into this lull in between, and like you said before, we have these entry-level curves that are coming out, but we're just in this dead space for a few months where we're just kind of hanging out. And we came out of DevCon, and I think the vibe after that was kind of like, like, what's going on? Like, this show was just kind of like dull and humdrum, and then we go to BlackBerry World now, and it was like super pumped up. we had that whole press session with Torsten Hines and everything, and we got, I was really excited coming out of that. So I feel like if he was in there, even 6 months or a year before, it just would have been this whole kind of different vibe because I don't know. I think it would have just flowed a lot better, and we wouldn't have had this lull and wondering, and maybe who knows either way, but maybe it would have kind of all rolled together, so we didn't have this however many 6 months of kind of dead space in between of just hanging out, waiting for BlackBerry 10.
Yeah. No, dead space is not a good thing in this industry anymore, right? I mean, if you're not putting stuff to market, it's kind of like, honestly, it's a little bit like what's that movie? Darn, Talladega Nights. Will Ferrell. If you're not first, you're last. It's a little bit like that. What was his name? Bobby.
Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby. That's it. Ricky Bobby. Shake and bake.
And yeah, but I mean,
it's kind of like that, right? If you're not putting out
we
new devices.
We didn't talk about it. I mean, like from just from our blogger standpoint, like there's we're always that's like Kevin's big thing, like what's next, what's next. But on the grand scale, it's like BlackBerry 7 phones are next, or the playbook release is next, or this is the these rumored devices are down the pipeline, like let's find more about these. But right now it's like there's no rumored devices. We don't have anything new aside from BlackBerry 10, which is still 6 months away, that we have to kind of work with. So it's just it's frustrating and just kind of like meh at the same time. So
makes me wonder if they would have been further along in BlackBerry 10 progress too. Like if Mike and Jim had to step down a year ago and Thorsten was in there, then essentially it leaves you with the idea that Thorsten may have been able to go ahead, clear up some of that junk that he's basically doing right now, and got RIM onto BlackBerry 10 a whole hell of a lot earlier. Like, we wouldn't be in the position right now if he was there a year earlier, because right now we'd probably be looking at BlackBerry 10 devices actually launched.
Yeah,
that's a whole year difference, right?
That would be a question I'd love to ask Hines, actually, if I had a chance to interview him again. And I don't know if he'd answer it, but it'd be, if you were CEO a year sooner, what would you have done with the playbook? Would you have even launched it? Or would have you, taken that energy and focused it right through to the phones, and to getting people trained up sooner? Because very much it was a QNX and small BlackBerry OS team at that time. Or sorry, a few people from like the traditional RIM Waterloo camp, I think, worked on the original playbook. And then when I interviewed Hines, what month was that? Was that January when he took over? I think it was January.
Yeah.
He said over the Christmas break, a lot of the BlackBerry, leading up into the holidays, that's when a lot of the BlackBerry OS people started to migrate over to the, learning the C++ and all that for QNX. Maybe that would have happened sooner, that transition and scaling up and ramping up all the teams to deliver, awesomeness, instead of it being sort of a device launch mixed in with the BB7 launches. And again, not focus. It was almost a distraction and not a full out effort, even though the people working on it were working on full out. It wasn't a full out company effort. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter anymore, right? It's all about just getting it done and delivering it.
Yeah, so. I think the most productive discussion is really going to center around where they go from here, because we can debate to death what would have, should have, but it's not going to change the future.
So the big question I had last night after the news, the press release happened, was where did Crackberry Nation still stand? Do we still have faith in the Rimpire striking back? Do we still have faith in Team BlackBerry pulling it off? Given just what's happening in terms of the stock price, the news, the sentiment in the media, where's everybody at? So I put it to a poll, and let's check the results now. So we're at 8,500 people have voted, and we still have 60% of the Crackberry Nation saying, yes, RIM can still pull this off and bring BlackBerry 10 phones to market. Go Team BlackBerry. We have 25% saying no, given the stock price, the sentiment, time to market right now, something significant is going to change in RIM's operations. And by that, we meant, plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, whether that's acquisition or licensing or, splitting things apart or that kind of thing. And, 15% of the people just not sure, right? Which is understandable too, because it's kind of a weird thing. There's a lot. I know for me right now, I'm in a weird spot where I'm so excited about BlackBerry 10. and literally probably more excited than I've been in since being around the BlackBerry space. And we'll talk about, you know, a recap of what we saw at BB10 at App World or at BlackBerry World shortly. But BB10 rocks, and I'm more excited following BlackBerry World than ever for it, because I think RIM finally has their priorities straight on who they're building a phone for. But then on the one hand, I'm so excited, and then I'm just conflicted because on the other hand, the business situation here sucks, right? And there's no sugarcoating it. I mean, they're in a tough spot. So I don't like to come across as delusional fanboy for BlackBerry, but on this one hand, I'm just stoked for BB10. And on this other hand, it's this balancing of like, are they going to make it? Which is obviously something, you know, that just shouldn't even be. It shouldn't even be here as an issue, right? Like if they'd been launching BB10 a year ago or a year and a half ago, it'd be such a different space. But instead, it's, you know, it's like gambling right now. Got an awesome product, but you know. And then my other thing with this is the self-fulfilling prophecy, and I don't know how RIM fights that. And maybe not self-fulfilling prophecy, but put it this way: one of the questions I'm getting is, even when BB10 hits, let's say it rocks, if the business situation for RIM is kind of dismal, does that affect the buying decision? Do people say, yeah, it's a great phone, but you know, I don't know if RIM's going to be here in a year, so I'm going to buy from Apple because I know they will be here in a year? And I'll shut up now. So just take whoever wants to pick up on what I ranted on. Go for it.
It does matter. The self-fulfilling. Adam's smiling because, of course, I jump in, right? The guy who talks too much, right, Adam? The self-fulfilling prophecy. The group think the social media pressure. RIM is in trouble if they can't get out of this, if they can't get people saying great things about them. I had an email dialogue with a friend of mine in the UK, and I'll give you an example here. So he was just out and about yesterday looking at a bunch of Carphone Warehouse, O2, Voda stores, and saying he has a hard time even noticing BlackBerry being promoted in these stores much right now. So the US is bad. Is the UK the next shoe to drop? And this is just another potential indicator that things are going very, very badly before BB10. And even if BB10 is amazing, what is RIM going to do to make sure that people are talking about it? Because they can't afford to lose the momentum that they have with their fans. And you know, it's concerning when the Crackberry fan base, you've only got 60% of the people believing that they can pull through. That's 40% of them who think, well, maybe not, right? So that's
that is the enthusiast kind of people who do want RIM to succeed, right? It's
exactly. So what is it like on the street with average Joe, or average Joanne, whatever? You might have a much more pessimistic view. So that, I think, does affect people's interest in buying. I mean, look at when the car companies were going bankrupt. You had people talking about GM. Well, you can't buy a GM car; they're going to go bankrupt, right? And like as if the business would disappear. But people don't think it through and realize that obviously somebody will own GM, and obviously there will be support for these vehicles. And you don't just take a business and bury it. But people don't realize that, so they might be affected by this. Anyway, that's what I think. I don't know what you guys think.
Blaze.
I think RIM will make it through to be able to go ahead and release BlackBerry 10, but pretty much everything after that is what really is that question for me. I don't think that they'll, reach some point where they're like, oh shit, we screwed up so bad that we're not going to get BlackBerry 10 out the door. They'll definitely get BlackBerry 10 out the door. It's just whether or not BlackBerry 10 actually is successful and appeals to the masses. They can spend all the time that they need to make BlackBerry 10 right, make BlackBerry 10 perfect. If it's not accepted by the masses, then it's pretty much done for at that point. If they reach that point and put out a compelling product, but they're not appealing to people and nobody still buys them, like they're not buying BlackBerry 7 devices right now, then they're kind of screwed. What do you do at that point? Because people still aren't buying the compelling product that you put out. So they have to put it out there. They have to let it be known that it's a great product, and they have to get people talking positively about RIM products again, because people haven't necessarily been great in speaking about RIM products. They always go ahead and find something wrong with them. They compare them to iOS and Android, and there's so much other stuff out there that RIM products are being compared to right now. But if they're putting out something that's on a comparable level or better, then hopefully that will turn people to RIM's side and get them saying, look, RIM spent all this time on BlackBerry 10. They put out a really great product. You need to go ahead and check this out. And RIM really needs to get behind their own product as well. Because as we've seen with BlackBerry 7 devices, they're not really doing a whole lot of promotion to the extent that people think they should be with BlackBerry 7 devices, because there's still some diehard BlackBerry 7 fans out there that don't even necessarily really want BlackBerry 10 to arrive, because it's going to be a whole shift in dynamic for BlackBerry at that point. So they're quite happy with their BlackBerry 7 devices. But
I think it's
they
definitely
need to get it out there.
It's a big thing, the whole marketing thing. I mean, here in the US, like I've always, been big on, the commercials and the marketing. And when you think of BlackBerry 10, you got to think that, Rogers and whoever in Canada are going to have these giant hero campaigns and be like, this is BlackBerry 10, this and this and this. But in the US, I think it's different, because we don't have very well-made commercials that make you want to buy RIM products. You look at, even these short 30-second Apple spots, even if it's the ones for Siri or, there's this app and this app, or this is, the Retina display and this is what it does. Like when you compare them to these BlackBerry ads, like you don't have it. Like there's nothing that, if I were just, average Joe consumer, it's not going to make me watch TV and see this commercial and be like, wow, that's a great device. Like I want to go to, my AT&T store and buy it, or when you walk into an AT&T store, when BlackBerry 10's out, they're going to be like, oh, we have these BlackBerry devices. It's BlackBerry 10. It's this new software. And people are just going to be like, I don't like BlackBerry. Like I used to have a BlackBerry. I don't want another BlackBerry. They're not going to care, that it's this great new operating system. So I think RIM really needs to get behind the marketing and the promotion and everything, and you need to make it, this great new thing, like new hardware, new software, like BlackBerry 10 is the greatest thing ever. You need to buy it. But a lot of it, because we're influenced by, advertising and things like that. So they need to get it out there, and just having it, exist in the, the internet space and sponsoring, New Year's Eve in Times Square and, the Stanley Cup playoffs and things like that. It's not going to make people want to buy a new BlackBerry. Like they need to do something to get the awareness.
You know what I mean? Why they want to buy it.
Exactly. And it's not just enough to have, this amazing BlackBerry 10 operating system or this amazing new hardware, because, guys like us, like we, that's what we do. We research it. We know what's there. We know what it's about. But just your average consumer who has, an old BlackBerry or some old, original Droid or something, you need to make them want to use a new BlackBerry 10 phone. And I think that's one of the biggest things they need to conquer.
Well, I think BlackBerry World, the 3 little demos we got, was we saw a lot from RIM at that show, even though the demos were short. First thing we saw was clear messaging from RIM, and they said who they're building this phone for, right? But I think what they're trying to do with BlackBerry people is say, hey, BlackBerry is for people who do, and we've seen that little string of commercials that are running in the UK right now, where RIM's picking up on this message, right? And with what we saw at BlackBerry World, we saw the flow experience, okay? Now, that's not exactly I don't know if you could say it's a compelling feature that's going to make people run out to the store and buy it, in the sense that it's like, it's not a feature. It's literally an experience. It's a way to use the device. That's hard to market. I mean, we're going to talk about it a little later. I mean, I think it's brilliant, and it's kind of what sells me on BlackBerry 10. And I was a little fearful I wouldn't like BlackBerry 10, because leading up to BB World, we didn't really know what it was going to look like. And I think it's a huge thing. With the keyboard, again, we'll see if it gets copied or not, or if RIM has some intellectual property rights on it. But there's something there. I think RIM has a message they can push out of, everybody knows RIM makes the best keyboards on physical keyboards. If they can get the message across that we make the best touchscreen keyboards too, there's an appeal to that. And, something like the camera, which is obviously licensed from that company's Scalado or whatever it's pronounced, it's putting some sex appeal back into the platform, people rethinking about what BlackBerry can do. One of the marketing messages that I think RIM needs to overcome, though, is this BlackBerry 10 thing. I kind of wish, obviously that BBX would have not gotten trashed because of copyright issues, and they could call it that. And I also wish that Apple wouldn't have called the iPad 3 the new iPad, because that's what RIM should have done. Because then they could just do all their marketing, the new BlackBerry, the new BlackBerry. This is the new BlackBerry. But now if they do that, it's going to be a little bit of a Me Too thing. But calling it BlackBerry 10, even though we skipped BlackBerry 8 and 9, it's kind of putting things in succession, right? Where it's not totally clear that this is literally a new BlackBerry. So I don't know how they deal with that, but they do have a new CMO. Yumi, maybe you want to give us the details on him, because I already forgot his name. Bulbin?
Yeah, I forgot all the details about him as well, and I honestly don't have a whole lot of information about him. He's a which is he the former Light Squared guy? Is that the
yes?
I mixed up which is which. One was Sony Ericsson, and which was and one came from one had an Ericsson / Sony Ericsson background. The other guy had a Light Squared background. I think the Light Squared guy was the marketing guy.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know what to think there. I mean, Light Square is a screwed up business that is going nowhere because of spectrum issues and GPS interference that is affecting their ability to roll out a 4G network. I wouldn't blame that on a marketing guy. So I can understand why the guy moved on and joined RIM, but it doesn't tell me anything about his accomplishments or what he's going to bring to the table.
Hopefully he's good. We shall soon find out. I know that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear, like, what Blaise was saying, RIM needs to have something that is more than just hardware and something that people want to use. Like, RIM needs to make sure that when BlackBerry 10 gets in the store, it has prominent shelf space, prominent carrier support, and they need to make sure that they're there ahead of Windows 8 and that they're there with firepower.
It's going to be interesting. We've talked before about the value of relationships, and this is going to be a time when RIM really finds out, how good of friends the friends they think they have are, right? Around the world, and I think it's going to vary market by market. I think we talked about before, like in Canada, and as you mentioned, Adam, I have no doubt that you'll see Rogers and Bell give hero status and really pimp BlackBerry. They have to. If they don't, it's, I'm going to move to the US just out of spite for my Canadian carriers being sort of traitors. In the US, though, Big Red, AT&T, they don't care about BB to the extent where they'll, even though RIM helped them develop the smartphone market and build data and, consumption on devices to what it is today, I don't know if they have any loyalty or feel like they need to do something to support RIM there, especially if they decided they want to go Windows Phone or something as their third ecosystem. Around the world, though, I think, again, you take the North American myopic look at it, and it's, especially US, it's a different game still than around the world. Now, like you said, Chris, or Yumi, even in the UK, right, the shelf space is starting to get a little tighter for BB, and, even in some of these hot markets like Indonesia, that, the low-cost Android phones are starting to offset the low-cost BBs. So it's definitely a tougher than it would have been, say, a year ago in some of these markets for a BB10 to just roll out and immediately, have lineups at the stores. But we're only a few months away, and I think the brand in those markets is still pretty strong, right? So I think we could see BB10 launch. RIM's going to try to get it global attention. And I think, Adam, what you were saying about awareness, I think RIM is going to have a really good shot because the whole world's going to be watching to see BB10. Is it actually good? Does it appeal to people? There's going to be a lot of free advertising those first couple of weeks as the reviews go around the internet and, around mainstream and around the media. The thing is, it has to be good. And, one of the things we talked about yesterday on the Mobile Nations podcast is, BB10 is more advanced, right? This isn't iOS, which I'll use my line again, 4-year-olds and 84-year-olds can pick up and use because it's really dead simple. BB10 has simplicity to it also, but there's a lot of gestures. That notification gesture of, swiping up from the top right corner and then hooking over to the left. That's not intuitive. You have to learn how to use it. That sells the OS once you learn it. but it means you have to invest a little more time up front to learn to get a much better user experience going forward. And most people, when they walk into a store and pick something up, they won't be able to figure that out unless they already know before they get there and touch the phone how to use it. And I've seen that problem with the playbook in stores lots of times. I'd go stock out a local Future Shop or Staples or Best Buy, and see people pick up the playbook, obviously for the first time, just customers walking through the store, and they don't know what to do with it, right? They didn't go through the setup process of the initial boot. They're just picking up a device, and they don't know what to do, right? They don't see a button to get back to the home screen. So RIM really needs to solve that issue big time, because it's going to be critical that people know what they're doing when they experience the phones.
I think a lot of it too, it goes back to the thing with getting the awareness out and everything, but it's making people know that they want it. Like I remember when I think it was when the iPhone 4S came out, I was in AT&T the day after, getting a different SIM card for whatever reason, and this guy walked in. He had to be at least 80. This old man, you could barely understand him, but he just walks up to the counter and he says, "Do you have that new iPhone?" And I honestly don't think he had any clue what he was talking about, but he just, he needed a phone. He wanted this iPhone, and the people are trying to explain to him that, they announced it, but it wasn't released and this and that. And my uncle, who is 70 something, got an iPhone. He's from Colorado. He was out here visiting, got an iPhone while I was here, and he got it because he had heard of it, and he knew he wanted it, but he actually, he doesn't have a text plan on it even. And just watching him try to use it was funny, because he's trying to check his email and go through it. So I think it's part of it is, making people know they want it, and then they kind of, they wing it after that, because I'm sure we all remember getting a phone, even old flip phones when they came out, because they were the latest and greatest. And then you just sit there, and you kind of read the manual, or you look up online just how to, you figure it out after the fact. So I think that could be.
Motorola Razr was the shit.
Exactly, but and you got it because that was what you wanted to get, and it's like, I don't really care if I know how to use it because I'll figure it out. So I think, that could be part of the thing too, like making consumers realize, this is BlackBerry 10, you want it, you need to have it, and you'll figure out the details after the fact. That's how I. So
what you just described, Adam, kind of goes back to that last BlackBerry I messed up my lid on my bottle. I'm trying to fix it here. That last BlackBerry People Do commercial, because they featured the sheep in it as a little bit of a dig to the iSheep, which are around the world now. It's what you just described. It's people who are just they're just following, right? They don't actually know what the heck they're talking about, but Apple's hit this kind of sweet spot in the market where the sheep are there. And that works to sell a lot of devices, because you can be clueless, do no research, not really know what your needs are as a mobile user. But you're like, okay, yeah, I just want the iPhone. And there's actually a really interesting thread in the Crackberry forums right now where it's a guy who works at a carrier store, and he's just losing his mind with some of the iPhone stupidity right now. Where this lady walks in and there was something she wanted to take a picture of, but she's like, I need to borrow an iPhone so I can take a picture and email this to a friend. And the guy working had a BlackBerry on his, in his pocket, and he's like, "Well, you can do it use this." And she's like, "No, I can't take pictures with that BlackBerry. It needs to be an iPhone. I need to use an iPhone." And he's like, "What?" And then the guy he works with was who's the manager at the store, was looking at an Android phone and calling it an iPhone. And this guy's like, "That's not an iPhone. It's an Android phone." And there's just like this little bit of an iSheep thing going on right now. But that's okay. You just got to call people out on it, and coming into the that kind of a commercial and some of the, even the BlackBerry People Do concept. I mean, I really like it, but at the same time, you're basically insulting the people who don't do, right? It's kind of an interesting way to go about the marketing.
Everybody thinks that they do. So even if they don't,
it's true, right?
They do. Everybody overestimates their own capabilities. Everybody overestimates their own efficiency and their own ability to get shit done. And so I don't really think you're turning anybody off, except those who are so lazy they admit it. And
that's true. You're totally right. The psychologist nailed. That's totally brilliant. You're right. Everybody just assumes they are awesome. But it's funny because you watch that commercial, right? And there's that one scene where there's like the 4 kids sitting on a couch in the living room watching TV, which probably describes like 90% of the teenage population on a, pick your night of the week. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, those are all your iPhone owners, right?
Well, they're like, yeah, I'm doing something. I'm watching TV. I'm doing it.
But then there's the kids on the roller coaster right after that. It's like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
No, I just want my BlackBerry to be like the only device that I really have to turn to for like normal usage. Like, seriously, no joke. Like right now, even traveling, like I came to Arizona, the amount of devices that I brought to Arizona would probably just make people go nuts. I have an iPhone 4S. I have a Galaxy Nexus here. I have a Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1. I have an iPad. I have a playbook. I have my 9900. Seriously, like no individual needs all this amount of stuff traveling. I just want one phone that does everything kind of okay and reasonably well, I just want it to work. I want it to ring when people call it. I want it to alert me when people email me or message me. And I just want it. That's it. Just give it all to me in BlackBerry 10. Give me a great BlackBerry 10 experience. I don't care if you rip off Apple. I don't care if you rip off iOS. I don't care if you rip off Android. Just give me something good, put it in a really nice hardware package, and sell it to me. Just take my money. I will give you my money. Just give me something that will reduce me down to one device that does everything really good, and I'll be happy at that point.
Well,
because then I'll have empty pockets.
No, right now I'm sort of in the middle of an article I've been working on for a while, but maybe I'll actually finish it today, so it's posted before the end of the month. But it's basically 10 things we're looking forward to in BlackBerry 10 so far, right? And and we haven't seen a ton of BlackBerry 10, but we know a lot about it right now. And there's a few key things that make me super excited, and they're really unique in the smartphone marketplace right now, especially when we're looking at these big touchscreen, slab type phones, whether it's, the iPhone, which is relatively small now at 3.5 inches, but let's assume the next iPhone is bigger, and looking at some of these Android phones that are big. And, if I look back to why I love the BlackBerry 7 and older BlackBerries, it's not the specs, keyboard, yes, but it's actually this usage experience, and I've talked about this ad nauseum over the years. But BlackBerry's had this kind of one-handed ease of use thing that nobody's ever duplicated. And if you think about your BlackBerry Bold 9900, you can think about you hold the phone in your right hand, your thumb is on the trackpad. Hang on, Renee, our podcast producer Skyped me something, and now I just got distracted looking at it. Renee, why did you do that?
I typed you nothing.
You typed it hours ago, and I just noticed it. No, but one-handed ease of use, right? It's kind of the crack in BlackBerry, where I can walk down the street, use the phone one-handed, and have full control over it. And as soon as you get a big touchscreen device, yes, you can arguably use an iPhone with one hand, but it wasn't designed to be used one hand. Like as soon as you put the notification bar at the top of the screen and you pull it down, you have to reach for it, right? So if you have big hands, maybe it's easier to reach and use it kind of one-handed, but it's not really designed for it. And BlackBerry 10, they're sticking to their guns here. They're saying, we are building this phone for BlackBerry people, and they're actually really honing in and say, okay, what is this thing that BlackBerry's done over the years that people really value? And it's things like the one-handed ease of use. It's the things like the phone thinks for you. So, I mean, think back to the old track wheel BlackBerry. So not even trackball, but the older ones. I could use my BlackBerry. Yeah, like I could use my BlackBerry 8700 without even looking at it, because if I had it against my ear, I knew I could tap that trackpad in, what the options would show up as. Like you could literally use the thing without your eyes if you wanted to, because the menu option you wanted was always there. And RIM's taking that mentality, and now they're starting to pull it into things like this keyboard they're working on, and into the OS. So I think there's so much in BlackBerry 10, and obviously the article we publish will be a lot more concise, that is unique and differentiated. And I think that's good, but they need to, it's not going to appeal to everybody, right? It's going to appeal to people who appreciate it. And again, coming back to the marketing thing, it's going to be really interesting to see how they get this out the door, because my biggest issue is I think what BlackBerry 10 is going to excel at is going to excel for these BlackBerry people who do, for the, quote, producers of the world, using sort of the Ayn Rand terminology. And, in general, I'm not sure tech bloggers who do these product reviews fit into that. Not slamming any of them, because, we are them also. But people who haul ass and like if they don't get something done are going to lose their job, those are the people who appreciate what the BlackBerry experience is about. And that's a lot of the people who still today are BlackBerry users, right? Part of that's because their company gave them BlackBerries, but then there's the people who, the 78 million who still appreciate that focus on the communication experience first, that ability to get shit done fast. And Android, iOS, they've gone away from that. I plotted out a couple weeks ago, if you look at the sale of iOS devices over the past couple of years, and you look at, the decline of the economy the last couple of years, it's correlated 100%. As the world gets big touchscreen phones that are not productive, the world goes downhill. So for the world to succeed, BlackBerry needs to come back to number one. I'll shut up now. I'm just like high on coffee and Campari.
Interesting mix.
And water. No, but I mean that was ranty. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a focus RIM's putting into the device that's good. I just don't know if it is going to appeal to 100% of the people. It's going to appeal to 20%.
Yeah,
but maybe that's okay.
What I was thinking about earlier is, we're in this weird spot. We're in the valley here where RIM's business is falling off, and the news that we're seeing and the layoffs and the potential inventory write-down if they do one are all a reflection of the past. And then we go to Orlando and we go to BlackBerry World and we see what's coming in the future. And it's not that far away, but we're all pissed off that it's not here yet. Or give it to me now. It's going to be great. And so what we see in the market is all based on the past. And what we see at a RIM show and when we talk to people, it's all what's coming. And it's just like frustrating as hell to understand, what the truth is really. Either these guys are in so much trouble that they're never going to come back, or they're going to make one hell of a comeback that's going to line up with the history of Apple. I mean, they're not going to be as big as Apple. I'm not saying that, obviously, but Apple was nearly dead and is now the biggest company on the planet.
I'm glad you put that little disclaimer in there.
Yeah, just to be clear, right? Yeah. No, I'm not saying, but we're talking about coming back from the verge of what otherwise would be death here.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I just kind of want to shut up before I was going to rip into Jim Balsillie right now for a few minutes, but maybe I'll stop. It's funny, if you go back through some of the interviews and quotes of Balsillie over the years, I get mad because as much as he, I don't even know how to phrase it. Let's just say, remember the time he was on that George Stroumboulopoulos show? He was interviewed, and they were and at this point, RIM's shares are skyrocketing and everything else, and he's just talking about like, well, we're just going to milk it for all it's worth. We're going to shoot for the moon. It's a land grab right now, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and then George asks the question like, well, what if it slows down or changes? And it's like, well, we crash and burn. That was what Balsillie was saying then. And then there's this quote he gives where it's like, tech platform transitions are where tech companies go to die. And it's exactly what RIM's working on right now. So obviously he's very upfront about the challenges and their strategy. But then I'm like, it seems like he's smart. Yet then, like, why didn't they just get their act together as a company sooner? And then I get very mad.
I think the simple answer, Kevin, is he is smart. He's really smart. He's a great businessman, and he built the company up from, basically its early days to, whatever, $20 billion in revenue or something like that. But it was, and this isn't my line, I'm borrowing this from a really smart friend of mine. It's the biggest company that he and Mike have ever run. And these guys were never trained to set up a company with the kind of management infrastructure and processes that a large company needs. And I'm not saying by criticizing that, I'm not saying I have those skills, because I don't. I don't think any of us here necessarily do. But he probably suffered like many of us would in that situation of not realizing his weaknesses. It's called unconscious incompetence, not knowing what you don't know, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a good answer.
I just firmly believe he should have never been placed in front of a camera. That's pretty much it. I don't doubt that he's a smart man. He definitely has some higher intellectual business happening than I do, but he should have never been given a camera. Keep him away from the camera, keep him away from media. Just hide him away in an office and tell him to do work.
Okay, we have a few minutes to finish up here, so I'm just watching the live chat today, and somebody said, Google bought Android, and I guess Google bought, Motorola. Will Facebook buy RIM? Yumi, yes or no?
I'm not going to rule it out. It's a definite possibility. I mean, I don't think that Facebook needs to own a mobile OS personally, but if they're competing against Google, who does, and they want to move into advertising, and if they want to compete directly in the markets that Google's in, and they're already competing for paid clicks and all that kind of stuff, yeah, it's a definite possibility, owning a good operating system and having a platform. Otherwise, if you're just an app.
What's the two-way benefit there? If let's say Facebook did approach RIM and they were like, yeah, we'll give you however many billion. You guys just operate on your own. We'll have some input. What's the two-way benefit there? What does Facebook get out of it, and what does RIM get out of it?
Well, the only way I can see a company like Facebook getting something out of it is that by controlling the OS, you can control what happens and whose ads are being served at all times. And if you're an ad platform, which Facebook is becoming, then you want to control your platform. Even if you're running Android, okay, then if Google controls Android, Google can drive all of the apps and all of the ads that get delivered are Google powered, and Google gets revenue from that. If somebody else hacks Android, like Amazon's done with the Kindle, then there's no control there, and Google doesn't necessarily benefit at all, right? So if Facebook wants to own an OS platform, and mobile is where they need to be at globally, then they need to control a mobile platform so they can always be the app that's delivering the revenue-generating services to their audience. That's just one way of looking at it. That would be the only way I can see they'd be interested.
It's pretty much like how Google is running Android right now. Android's nothing but a big advertising platform. They don't care. They'll give it to you. Yeah, they get to serve up all of the ads. So
it's kind of true if you think about it. Like, Facebook arguably on the web is a platform, right? Because you have all these guys like Zynga and that using the Facebook platform to launch derivative-based, businesses based off Facebook, right? Facebook on the web isn't just a website or a social network. It literally is a platform once you're in it.
Exactly.
But on the mobile devices, really, Facebook is an app, and then guys like Zynga and that, they take their games and services and they put them back onto the other ecosystems, whether it's iOS, etc. So, I mean, it logically makes sense for Facebook to want to own a mobile platform so they can take over what they have on the web in terms of a platform and make it... I'm not looking defeated. I'm reading the comments again. I'm just like a little drunk.
Yeah, we're not trying to put rumors out there, but we're discussing, at least we're talking about the future and not the past here, right? Like, the fact is that if Facebook is competing with Google, then owning a mobile OS platform is not the craziest thing in the world. And Facebook is competing directly with Google, as is Apple, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, let's do more Q&A. We have a few minutes left. So number one, should I get a haircut or not? Because I was planning on growing it out till BB10 phones launch, but I kind of want to it's driving me nuts.
Maybe at least a mullet.
Well, I think a headband. I'll get like a Crackberry orange headband, and I was thinking about getting some blonde highlights for the summer, and then I'll just be like, take 8 years off my life.
Go for it.
So it says everybody says don't cut my hair. So done. Next question would be, let's go with if somebody were to buy RIM or partner with them, maybe I'd say partner. Who would you want it to be? Samsung, Microsoft, somebody else? Mobile Nation.
Yeah, okay, I would love to see Samsung do it on the hardware front and bring BBM to the Android platform only on Samsung devices. I'll just leave that.
Okay, that's kind of my thing too. I think Samsung would make sense. Microsoft could be really weird, like in a weird way, because if you say, right now you have 4 major mobile ecosystems. And, the battles between Microsoft and RIM for third place. If Microsoft bought RIM, well, that gets rid of one of your issues, right? Now you just have 3 major players left. And then all of a sudden, you could have BlackBerry running Windows Phone, and then at least you have BlackBerry and Nokia. You have 2 of your bigger brands out there fighting, since Microsoft doesn't really make Microsoft phones, right? I don't know. It seems weird, and I think it would be not good for BB. It'd kind of be the end of BB as you know it, but maybe you'd be buying some patents in a fairly popular brand, or at least a well-known, well-recognized brand. Okay, another question. Skype or Netflix? Or Skype and Netflix. So far, there's no confirmation they'll be there at the launch of BB10, right? And I'm getting a sense that, unless something major happens, they're going to be missing. So the first question is, how big a deal is it if Skype and Netflix are not on BB10 at launch?
I think it's at launch. I mean, they need to be there eventually, sooner rather than later. Whether they're on the actual launch date or not, it would hurt if they're not. But and if I had to pick one, I'd pick Skype over Netflix any day.
Me too.
Yeah.
I feel like Netflix, you could get them forced in there if you come at it backwards. Like, let's make sure Hulu and everybody else is there, and then Netflix will kind of have to come over just to not be outdone by their competitors. Skype, though, is a little different because Skype is sort of, like Skype is the one I need. Like, frick, we live off Skype with mobile nations. That's what keeps a virtual company like ours connected most of the time. So for me, I'm like, I need it because it's huge. So then the next question is, should I go on a hunger strike for Skype, or is that just a dumb idea? I just quit eating until they...
Yeah, it's pretty much a dumb idea.
Dumb idea. Even Renee Ritchie says it's a dumb idea. We need you alive. What can we do then? How do we get their attention? We've already rallied the community. We've emailed the CEO of Skype 5,000 emails in one day. We need to do something.
Can we do an Occupy Skype and just camp out in front of Skype headquarters?
Where's their offices? Maybe we could.
I guess it's not in Redmond yet, is it?
I don't know. All right, Blaze has some call coming in. Anything else you guys want to tackle today? I think this was a pretty fun show.
Yeah, the only other one I saw in the comments, and people have been asking this question a lot, is will the stock price matter to RIM actually getting their business plan executed? Does the fact that the stock is tanking matter at all to the outcome in the next, let's say in the next year, as they get BB10 out there? And my feeling is it doesn't matter that much. In the short term, the stock price never really matters that much. I mean, unless RIM needs capital, no, it doesn't matter. They just go about their merry way in the next 6 months and continue to launch. So that's my official answer to that question.
Cool. If it gets cheap enough, will somebody take it private? Or is it too big a dough, too risky? Especially if cash flow is negative.
It's cheap enough now that it could happen. Somebody could go after them and take them private.
Should it be us? I wonder if we could do that on Kickstarter. Can we kickstart, raise, pledge? We're looking to raise, $1,000 from 1 million people. And
big donate button, PayPal donate
button. And then Kevin absconds with the funds and lives the rest of his life out on a beach, getting his chest and arms waxed with a nice tan.
Posting it online with a BlackBerry.
Posting it online. Done.
Okay.
All right, guys. I think that's a pretty good show for today. I mean, a little bit of crap we have to deal with, obviously, but I don't think we're defeated. I think the BlackBerry people are strong. I mean, again, things have changed, but not changed, and I think it just comes down to execution. I'm more excited than ever for BlackBerry 10, and I actually have more faith in RIM as a company than maybe ever before, right? Given the new leadership and management and focus. The real issue here is just timing and making sure the story that's out there is reported accurately and not just, shittily for clicks and the negative story, right? Let's look at it as an opportunity.
New York Times.
New York Times. There you go. And I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm bullish on the stock in the short term, but I'm still bullish on BlackBerry 10 and getting her out. And I'm gonna buy like 10 of those phones as soon as they hit the market. So
10 for 10.
BlackBerry 10, 10 for 10. You know what the 10 stands for, Yumi?
Well, you're gonna tell me, right?
It's gonna get 10 out of 10 on all the reviews.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's why they skipped 8 and 9. Screw it.
They should have called it BlackBerry 11.
And they're gonna launch it on October 10th. So it's gonna be 10, 10, 10. BlackBerry 10 on October 10th.
10, 10, 10, 10.
You can quote me on that.
If they make it for October, I'll be impressed.
They have to. It's got to be October.
Freaking hope so. All right, who's tapping away?
That's
Kevin,
me.
That's Kevin's wrap.
That's like the drum roll. All right, see you later, BlackBerry people.
All right, are we done?
Renee, do you want to do our little Mobile Nations where you can catch all the shows line?
Absolutely. You can find Kevin and the rest of the crew at Crackberry or Crackberry.com. You can find all of us at mobilenations.com/shows. Go there for all your smartphone universe needs. And if you have something you want to tell the crew, if you want to tell Kevin just how much of a BlackBerry fan you are, email him. He might acknowledge you in a future version of the universe.
Podcast at Crackberry.com. Okay, I think that's it, guys. Kevin out.